I'm a relatively content and energetic person, or at least I like to think so. But I've been noticing that lately, maybe a few weeks, couple months, there was kind of this like joy lacking in my heart. And it took me a while to actually acknowledge that this was going on. But thankfully, I did mention this to my mentor, and one thing she reflected back to me was maybe this was kind of a long-standing habit. Something was going on in my mind that I was just really noticing now that my mind was a bit more settled and I don't have the same kinds of distractions that I had been used to before. And so, looking closer, I could really see how the afflictions, my anger, my attachment, and my ignorance were really sucking away my joy. And this was manifesting in my complaining mind. It was really self centeredness at work, or is self centeredness at work, and seeing through the lens of I, me, and mine, like what I like, what I don't like, and seeing this kind of um, unsatisfactoriness when I think that like the way I do things and the way that I think is kind of naturally better than how others do it. And this leads to being irritated easily. So I'm really glad to notice this and have the opportunity to work on it. And in Safe 1B, we've been looking at the three principal aspects of the path: renunciation, bodhicitta, and the wisdom realizing emptiness. And so I've been really trying to apply these teachings to this cranky mind to help me develop these characteristics within myself, and also to help me transform my mind to seeing things more realistically and in a more positive light. And with renunciation, I've been able to see that this cranky mind is samsara, is suffering. And this is the thing that I want to turn away from, because it's my mind that's making me unhappy. It's not the things that are going on around me or what people are saying or doing. It's the way that I'm interpreting it that is making me miserable. And so this is what I am turning away from with renunciation, is I'm turning away from the causes of suffering. And so seeing more clearly that it really is coming from my own mind, um, I see the ways, I see that I have the capacity and the ability to shift that and to, yeah, renounce the suffering that I'm creating for myself. I see the benefits of working with this. I'll share a small example that's a little bit embarrassing, but when I see the water pitchers are empty, I have this virtuous motivation of like, I want to help support the community and help people stay hydrated. And so I start filling the water pitchers. But then it just is so quick where I can see someone sitting at the tables and maybe it looks like they're not doing anything. And then I have this thought like, why aren't they filling the water pitchers? And so my motivation just changes and my whole attitude changes from this like taking delight in serving to like kind of feeling resentful, like, why am I doing the work? And so it's been great to work with this because that can just ooze into so many other facets of life. And I really noticed the benefits the other day when I walked into the kitchen a few minutes after practice and saw that no one was making breakfast, and I had this thought of like, okay, like I have the opportunity to help and serve the Sangha and the community and um, make sure that we can all go along our day in an you know, unaltered way, like without a big fuss of, oh my gosh, there's no breakfast. And I could notice how quickly that mind wanted to switch to like, grumble, grumble, why am I making breakfast? It's not my day to make breakfast. But that really overall being able to switch it quickly, because I've been practicing with the water pitchers, that it really was quite joyful. And I was really glad to have the opportunity to step in and see something to be done and actually have the capacity to be able to help. So it's been really wonderful to work with this mind and try and decrease creating suffering for myself and others as a result. I've also been working to cultivate bodhicitta, the second principal aspect of the path. And this has been a lot of where the fodder and the fuel has been for counteracting this mind of complaining, because I think that I'm not alone in having a mind that complains. And when I see the suffering and unsatisfactoriness that it causes for myself, I can also see that others, when maybe they're in a place where they're coming across as kind of cranky or unhappy or angry, that they're also suffering from this mind that's possibly complaining and ruminating. And from there, I can develop compassion, knowing that I can create these unsatisfactory situations for myself, and wanting myself to be free from that. I really want others to be free from their suffering and create the causes for happiness. I've also been spending time in the meditation on the Buddha. There's a part, as we're generating refuge in bodhicitta, of really thinking about the kindness of others and thinking about how everything in our life is completely dependent on the kindness of others. And thinking in this way really shifts my mind from like what's wrong and the faults that I'm finding to so many more things that are going right, and so many more things that I have to be grateful for, and so many opportunities to see the kindness of others and their good qualities, and that we all really want to be happy and be free from our suffering. And when looking at the kindness of others and that we all have this deep wish for happiness, the meditation goes on to encourage us to reflect that others have problems just like us, and that oftentimes their problems are even worse. And so as we've been watching the documentary on the Holocaust and Schindler's List recently, and the war in Ukraine, learning about the lives of people in Newport and really everywhere, that others have problems far worse than my own. And this really helps me put my cranky mind in perspective of like, what do I have to complain about? I live in a community with people who are all trying to cultivate our best selves. We're all trying to live ethically and with integrity. Can I see the actual like wonderfulness in our diversity of thinking and ways of doing things, instead of getting so caught up in my way is the right way? And then looking at the problems of others, the meditation encourages us to examine our capacity to help them and see how limited my ability to help others is right now, especially if I'm ruminating and fault finding. And so I really need to develop this firm determination to eliminate my anger and my attachment and my ignorance, because that's the only way that I'm going to be able to support others to do the same, and then help others to find the happiness in their own hearts, instead of being constantly disappointed by the disadvantages and dissatisfactoriness of samsara. The third principal aspect of the path is wisdom, and this helps me really just broaden my mind when I can get stuck in my complaining attitude, when I question, like, who is it that is complaining? It's not really my body generally that's complaining. Maybe my brain a little bit, but I don't think that's me, the big lump of goo. And if it's my mind that's complaining, like the mind isn't really like stagnant or solid, or there's nothing I can point to or even see that is the mind, because it's always changing, and my complaints are always changing, and sometimes I'm not even complaining. Sometimes I even have a virtuous mind. And so really pinpointing this person who is complaining helps it just kind of like loosen up and see that it's all in my mind. And then I also can consider, like, what am I complaining about? Because whatever it is totally dependent on so many causes and conditions. And whatever my mind is thinking is really more targeted towards like, oh, it's this person that's doing this. Oh, it's this one situation. It's really labeling the cause of my irritation on something as an independent, solid thing, and I'm not seeing that that's also so composed of causes and condition that it's impossible for my irritation to arise from one other thing. It's a myriad causes and conditions. And also that a complaint depends on the mind that labels it as a complaint. And so what I might see as something unsatisfactory, something I don't really like, that goes against my preferences, someone else might see as like wonderful and the greatest thing. And so where is there anything to complain about in there? So it's really been helpful to see my mind and kind of the crankiness and curmudgeoniness that so naturally arises, and to really work with that, to cultivate fortitude and compassion and spend my energy on this instead of letting this ruminating unsatisfactoriness continue and continue. And I see that this is really important because when I look at the world around me, there's a lot of complaining going on. People complain about their neighbors, they complain about people of different genders, different races, different abilities. Um, and, and we share our complaints with those that are around us, our family, our coworkers, our friends, and social networks. We influence others, and these complaints can really grow into hatred and strong anger. And this can grow into violence, which gets expressed in many different ways. And so I need to pay attention to when my mind gets in this complaining state, because I don't want it to grow into hatred and into violence in this life or in any future lives, and instead be the opposite, where I can support others to look at things in a more realistic way and see the kindness that's around us instead of these, few things that go against my preferences and my likes and my dislikes, and challenge my ideas and what I think is right. So I am working to be mindful of my attitude and what's going on in my mind, working to keep it in a virtuous place, to see the kindness of others and each other's good qualities, and then using introspective awareness, that little spy, to let me know, like, hey, you're off course. Go back. And then actually listen when introspective alertness rings the bell of alert that I am in the complaining mind. So I'm working to diminish and hopefully extinguish this habit. And while I do that, I'm really glad for the opportunity to really bring it onto the path and use it to help me fortify and develop renunciation, bodhicitta, and wisdom. And so I hope that all of us can take these aspects of ourself, which so easily arise and are these more unrealistic ways of viewing things, and can apply the teachings and really work towards achieving our highest aspirations of eliminating these afflictions and our causes of suffering, so that we can help others do the same and achieve lasting happiness.